difference between angels and souls. Angels are limited in 4 ways. They have a guf, which limits them. They have a neshama, which limits them. The elokus, which is added to them for their shlichus, is also limited. And what they give us is further limited. And yesterday I mentioned quickly, when I was preparing the questions, I did something which I don't normally do. I could have made 10 questions out of yesterday's class, which meant I would have wasted all day going over yesterday's class, where I mentioned to the idea that malachim are negate to nevuah. Every time a person has a nevuah, you have a malach. The only exception to that was Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Moshe Rabbeinu was his own angel. That's how it says in the Mefarshim. But besides for Moshe Rabbeinu, every Navi experiences nevuah with the help of a malach. And it's true not just according to the philosophers, like the Rambam. It's true even according to the Mekubalim, like the Ramban, which is a big chiddush. But I didn't put it on the sheet, and I'm happy I didn't. After the Rebbe discussed the limitations of malachim, when the souls are unlimited. Okay? Question 34. First, the Rebbe says that the angels limited and human souls are unlimited. Then he changes his mind twice. What is the first change that he makes, and what is the second change that he makes? Okay, so there's 3 steps. Step number 1, a malach is finite, a neshama is infinite. Step number 2, a neshama is also finite, in Gan Eden. It only becomes infinite when it comes into this world. And what's step 3? Who remembers?
With the power they give us is limited. The energy they.
Anybody? You know. Speak. Huh? I'll say the question again. We start off by saying neshamas, malachim are finite and neshamas are infinite, yeah? But we changed that twice. Change number 1. A neshama is also finite in Gan Eden. It's infinite down here. Right? Then we say, even down here. Come on, I need more.
Oh, once you get married.
A person is finite until he gets married. So the 3 steps are, step number 1, compared to malachim, the neshamas are infinite. Step number 2, compared to neshamas, a neshama in Gan Eden is finite, a neshama down here is infinite. And step number 3 is even a neshama down here is finite until it gets married. Because when you get married and you have a baby, you release a Achei Temimim. It's just interesting how the Rebbe develops it.
Second change.
That was 34, right? First he says neshamas are infinite compared to malachim. Then he says only a neshama down here is infinite. And then he says only a person after he gets married reveals an infinity. $35. We ready? Chaskel brod. Welcome back. 35. Shall I go to 35 or not? Do you need a pen? According to the final explanation of when a soul becomes infinite, in other words, you become infinite when you get married, what is it about that event, about getting married, that makes them so? And the answer is, when you bring a child into this world, you're revealing, it takes an infinite...
That's not when you get married, it's when you have a kid.
Right. So the marriage creates the possibility for it. It says in Maimorim, including in Moshe Legani, that the reason we make such a big simcha when a couple gets married, because it's releasing the potential for the Ein Sof. In having children, but what's hard to understand is that this is not true to people only. It's true of animals. And it's true of plants. But we make such a big deal out of it, and somehow and by human beings and by Yidden it's different.
Oh yeah, I was about to ask that. So by non-Jews it's...
Same thing. Achei Temimim. Achei Temimim.
But they don't really... Do non-Jews have a neshama?
The Achei Temimim has nothing to do with a neshama. It has to do with the physical life, the new life. But just yesterday, a girl sent me a message. How could you say... I forgot how she phrased it, about Goyim, when Goyim are spiritual and Goyim are righteous. So I answered her that a Goy who keeps the Shabbat, so the first thing I told her was, you're not good because you're spiritual. Some of the biggest Rishonim were spiritualists. You're good if you live a religious life. Keep Shabbat mitzvahs, and then you have a chelik in El Mabah, and you have You have a shaykhs alakus. The Rebbe says, your neshama, the nefesh of a goy, in Tanya it says, is from Shol Klippus at Meir Zagamri. So the Rebbe told somebody, a goy who keeps Sheva mitzvahs, his neshama is from Klippus Naya. That's Kedusha. You know what that means? You know what that means? That a goy who keeps Sheva mitzvahs has neshama Klippus Naya? It means that they're capable of altruism. Not that they can do good things. They can do a good thing without any kickback. They can do a good thing without any... The chiddush of a yid, when you say a yid is good, it's not the yid gives tzedakah. A yid gives tzedakah, he's not going to get anything from it. Just because it's good. A guy who keeps Sheva mitzvahs can be good altruistically, with no reciprocity. He's not going to get anything back. Now this is a whole lumdus. If you study biology and evolution, so one of the things that's a big deal in animal studies, behavior, is why an animal will die for another animal. Why would I give away my life to save yours? Why would I risk my life to save yours? So there's a whole science behind it, which is it's genetic. It's a preservation of DNA. If a brother and a sister are fighting, right? The brother is prepared to die, so the sister should live because half of the genes of the sister are his, so he's going to live on through. It's all about reproduction. It's all about the survival of my genes. It's a whole science. And if I have nothing to gain, scientifically, biologically, evolutionarily, there's no reason why one animal will die for another if it doesn't get anything back. That's the science. That's the chokhmah. In other words, evolutionary science, behavioral science, psychological science, believes that nobody does anything without a self-interest. It's fundamental to the teaching. The whole idea of toiv in Torah is you're doing something good without a self-interest. Goyim do kindness. The Tanya is saying a goy does kindness, he wants something back. But when you say a goy keeps Sheva mitzvahs and that goy is righteous, it means the goy is capable of doing good without getting anything back. Altruistically, it's a big deal. Anyway, that's an aside. I want to get back to the main, okay? 35. We did that. 36. Tell me both aspects that manifest infinity and procreation. There are two ways that when a baby is born, there's an infinity, okay? And I emphasize, the Maimon really focuses on the second. I want to focus on both. The first thing is as follows. Okay? Now, I know there's somebody walking into this room who's a nurse or a doctor who's not arguing with me, but I'm not wrong. It's just a tweak on it, okay? Logically, common sense-wise, if a couple has a baby when they're 20, and another couple has a baby when they're 30, and another couple has a baby when they're 40, and today you can even say, and the fourth couple has a baby when they're 50, those babies should reflect the relative age of their parents. Meaning a baby born to parents who are younger and healthier should be a healthier baby. A baby born to parents who are older and not so healthy should be not such a healthy baby. And the fact of the matter is, every time a baby is born, they're as healthy as their parents were when their parents were born. Every birth is resetting the clock. In other words, you're not older because your parents gave birth to you later, biologically, physically. So that means every time a baby is born, you start from the beginning again. That doesn't make any sense. If you do something later in life, it should reflect your advanced age, and it doesn't. It starts from the beginning. There's an Ein Sof here. The Ein Sof is every baby is like the first baby.
Wait, I didn't get
So you don't get weaker over time. There's a law in science called entropy. You know what entropy means?
No.
You go from order to disorder.
Okay.
You go from order to deterioration. Over time, everything breaks down. You know, the example that they always bring in school is you make a sand castle and the wind blows it, and over time it's called the law of entropy. The law of entropy says everything gets weaker over time. If everything gets weaker over time, later generations should be weaker than the generations before. And they're not. They're stronger than generations before. Because every generation is as good as the first generation, because every baby born starts off where the first baby was when that baby was born. So every generation resets the clock. There's an infinity here. There's an Ein Sof here. There's a miracle here, in other words.
Rabbi, so you're saying that people, okay, so it's not just when you get married that you get to become infinite. It's because you get married and now you have the ability to have a kid, right?
Right.
It's infinite. Technically, you don't receive the ability to have kids when you get married.
Well, you need two people together to have the entire Ein Sof.
So it has nothing to do with marriage at all.
You only can have a kid when you're married.
Oh. I'm saying like
You don't have the potential to have a kid if you're.
I'm trying to figure out what's bothering you.
You don't need
I'm
to
saying
get married
where's
to have a
marriage in the
kid.
picture? I'm saying obviously it's the right thing to do, but I'm saying if there's any time you have a kid, like you become infinite,
Yeah,
nothing to do with marriage.
nothing to do with marriage. If that makes you happy, then we'll settle that issue and we'll move on. I'll be tired you're supposed to get married. I'll be tired everything is a mitzvah, but okay, whatever makes you happy. Go ahead. You do me a favor, could you sit further away from me, maybe? Oh. Talk. You can come to the table, so many empty seats.
In the olden days, it says my Rivka was like, when she was 3, she was like a 17-year-old mature person, like physically and like maturity.
Rabbi.
And it says Moshe was whatever, this person was that tall, that person was that tall.
But also Mexico has like specific grades.
Rabbi.
Hold on one second. Could you do me a favor, get to your question? Tell me a question, not a history lesson.
No, he said back then you have cases where like Rachel was like a 17-year-old mature girl at 3 years old. So
What is your one second? What is your question?
So I'm saying we obviously don't have, is that like set in stone that we all go back? Were they the exceptions or were they the norms of their time?
Of course they were the exceptions.
I've always heard that just when we were learning our class, is that they were just like more mature at that age. Like they were more mature younger. And like the older we got, the less mature we got. We need time. Is that not a true statement? That's my question.
It's not a relevant statement. I mean, good, please come here.
Rabbi, I remember.
Guys, when we learn Chassidus, it's not an opportunity to ask every question that man has ever thought of since the beginning of time.
no.
You want to go back to this question of marriage?
Yes. I remember that to it. So if you're saying that when you get married, then you're infinite because you have the potential to have a kid. When you're born with the potential to have a kid. So why then would you not be born with infinity?
Because it's not manifest. I understand your question. Because you're not revealing it. You're not revealing it. It's a potential. It's not revealed. That's all. Okay, so let's go back to 36, please, if I may. Can we close those doors? Since you're the closest to the doors, you get that job. The first aspect of infinity and procreation is that every baby is born like the first baby is born. We're not a reflection of the age of our parents. Now, by the way, you could make arguments against that. You could make very good arguments against that. If you know anything about having children later in life, you could make good arguments against it. But what I'm saying is still true. In other words, there's a greater likelihood for people to have children specifically with an extra chromosome. What do they call that? I don't know what it's called.
Syndrome.
Down. It's a true. But if the baby is healthy, he's no less healthy than another baby born to parents 20 years before. So that's the first aspect of infinity. The second aspect of infinity is that there's no limits to how many babies come from a baby. A seed doesn't have a ceiling that says, you already produced 1,000 fruits, you can't make any more. It goes on indefinitely. Every baby has the potential to produce children ad infinitum. Those are the two arguments. The first one I added to the Maimed. The second one is discussed at length in the Maimed. The idea that there's an infinity in in procreation are these two ideas. Number one, every baby born is like starting over from the beginning. And number two, there's no limit to how many babies come from each baby. No seed runs out of the power to produce more life. Go ahead.
So basically, the first one is babies are born babies no matter what.
Well, babies are born healthy.
They're born as babies.
They're born healthy.
What does he say?
They're born healthy.
Oh, he said angels are dudes, right?
Okay, Shnei Zaman.
I'm saying they're born, regardless of question of their parents, they're born the same way.
Yeah.
Boys.
Which means they're born healthy. Why are you objecting to that?
I'm not.
Okay, good. So what's your point?
Babies are born babies. It's the same thing.
I know, but you could have a weak baby and a strong baby.
The point is that they're born healthy, not that they're born little.
That's right. The point is that every time a baby is born, they're exactly the same condition as the generation before, the generation before, and then the generation before. Okay, now 37. What does it say in Shulchan Aruch about the gender of malachim? This is important. Boys. This is important because it gives you an appreciation of the issue that we're talking about. It says in Shulchan Aruch that Yom Kippur is supposed to wear white. And the reason it says Shulchan Aruch is supposed to wear white because on Yom Kippur you're like a malach. It further says in Shulchan Aruch that this idea of wearing white is only men and not women because there's no such thing as female angels. There's no other malach. Now, what is the point here? The point here is that Alpi Torah, this power of infinity, the power of creating new life, in the ways we described, that it starts from the beginning and there's no limit how much come from it, is in the female, not in the male. The real power of Ein Sof, it's a feminine power. Because a woman is a makabel, and the Kabbalah has to do with bittul, and the bittul creates the space for the emergence of the koyach Ein Sof. Malachim don't have babies. Malachim are amazing, but Malachim do not have the ability to create new life. Malachim are, like we said in the class, very chassidish. There's no achei up there. There's just everyone is very religious. But Malachim don't have this room for creating new life. And in the context of this Maimed, that means Malachim are not any beings that can do anything beyond what the Eibush made them to be. They're not Mahalach. They don't go from place to place. They're standing still. They're incredible. They're great. They're wonderful. But they are what the Eibush made them to be. There's no part of their existence where they're creating. Because the power of Ein Sof, which is creating something new, and so to speak, something which the Eibush didn't give you, which is what makes a neshama, a soul, into a mahalach, and the neshama is considered moving rather than standing still. Malachim don't have. The koyach Ein Sof is in the feminine, not in the masculine. So malachim are wonderful, but creating something new, which would make them, so to speak, partners in the Eibish's world, they don't have the capacity for that. I'm sorry.
This is just male.
It says in Shulchan Aruch that malachim are all male. That's what it says. I can't hear you.
Because it's saying that only men have to wear white and you can
Take your hood off, and you'll be awake, and you'll pay attention, and you won't make me repeat myself. Or you're putting on your glasses. Your mom is waking up. Maybe you can go wash your face also. Okay, 38. I gave you an illustration from this, from the world of Toyu. What was that illustration?
Everything that comes from there is klipa.
Toyu is more godly than Atzilus. Toyu is more godly than Atzilus. And Toyu is the source of klipa. How could something be more godly than Atzilus and be the source of klipa? The answer is because the whole Chassidishkeit of Toyu is about itself. In other words, Toyu is close to the Eibush because he's very smart. Toyu is close to the Eibush because he's very passionate. Toyu is close to the Eibush because he's very sensitive. What doesn't Toyu have? Toyu doesn't have any submissiveness. Toyu's a Talmud Chacham because he loves to learn. Toyu loves the Eibush because he's passionate about meaningful things. There's no bittul in Toyu. The word that we use to denote it, anybody remember yesterday's class? It's a 2-letter word in Hebrew, which is a great pun in English. Ma. Mem hey, koyach ma. Ma means the power to submit. Toyu was smarter than Tikkun. Toyu is more passionate than Tikkun. Toyu was like a guy who's from because it all figured out, but it's all him. There's no aspect of Hashem told me and I'm listening. That's called bittul. That's called the power of ma. And it's an interesting pun because many of us call our mothers ma. And ma is a feminine trait. Bittul. The power of infinity, which is expressed in procreation, is not because you're so smart and you're so passionate, you're so sensitive, because you can submit to Hashem. You can evacuate your own space and let the Eibishter fill it. When you evacuate your own space and let the Eibishter fill it, you become infinite. You can create something in the world that belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Elam HaToyu, like Malachim, They're smarter than us, they're more passionate than us, they're more sensitive than us, they're big Talmidei Chachamim, they're more Chassidish, alle gute Sachen. But it's all based on their strengths. They don't have that property to use the language of Shavuos. I spent an hour and a half this morning researching class for Nasa V'Nishma, and I have nothing. I don't know what I'm going to teach. I spent all morning, bittel. I'm trying to find the Sikha, I can't find one. Do you imagine I can't find a Sikha on Nasa V'Nishma? Did I ever talk about Nasa V'Nishma all night? I can't find a Sikha on it. Anyway, but that's what I told you. Olam Atayu is all of their Chassidishkeit, all of their Yiddishkeit is masculine. I'm smart. I knew such a person, I knew a man who was a Baal Tshuva. He told me, I'm very good at carving. He can make, and he was brilliant. He was very, very articulate, very smart, very engaging. And he learned a lot of Torah, he learned a lot of Chassidus. He was very from Talazachen. But there was no bittul in him. It was all me. I got it figured out. I understand it. There was no aspect of giving yourself to the Eibishter. And that aspect of giving yourself to the Eibishter, this is where the infinity is. That's why the idea that people in this world have a keach ein safe, you have to have a man and a woman. And each one contributes a different aspect of it. But the place where the keach ein safe is truly manifest is in a woman. Because the idea of mekabel is bittul. Bittul means I can make space in myself for the Eibishter to fill that space. That makes me infinite. That allows me to be a creator in the Eibishter's world. Okay? That was yesterday's class. Yesterday's class was, people are not angels, right? my kid is not an angel. What's the answer to that? You come to PTA, my kid is not an angel. How are you supposed to answer that? Thank God. You don't want him to be an angel. Angels are good in an angel. In this world, a malach, a person. A person struggles, a person makes mistakes, but a person figures it out. And when a person figures it out, he's a mensch. So on a mystical level, it's creating new life. And this was yesterday's class. Okay? Questions or comments? Go ahead.
You said Torah was a source of Ra.
Who?
You said the same.
Of Klippa. Yeah, after Shvir Zakelim, right? Why? Because if everything is based on you, when it doesn't work, it breaks. Now, it is 7 minutes to 9 o'clock, and I need 25 minutes for today's class.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
So Ma is like
Mem Hey.
Right. So it's like that's a feminine energy because it's a chachma.
It's like bittul. It's submission.
And is chachma also?
Koyach Ma is the power of bittul. Yes.
So
Yeah.
chachma is related.
Chokhmah is actually a masculine quality, but it's more in Malchus than in Chokhmah. Yeah, Ma means bittul. In Chumash, twice, Moshe Rabbeinu describes himself as Mo. I'm what you want from me. I'm Mo. Mo means I'm nothing. My space is filled by the Eibishter's will. How could you ever tie it to me? So one time Moshe Rabbeinu says V'nachnu Mo, another says V'arein Ma. It's pushed in scripture. It's in Teresh B'Ksav. Like how could you ever tie it to Aaron? He has no mitzias. His whole mitzias is whatever the Eibishter wants. Go ahead, talk to me.
So I'm saying yeah. So how's Ma? So Ma is just saying like what? Like it's kind of like just receiving. Like kind of like whatever comes at you.
Ma is the ability to submit. If this was a psychology class, we would say Ma is the ability to trust.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It happens to be my job. Okay, Rabbi Yossi, I want to start what I was hoping to be today's class. I unfortunately, we have a problem with time. But let me start. Go ahead.
Can Hashem instill the potential for bittul in something?
You have to talk a little louder, please.
Can Hashem instill the potential for bittul in something?
He did.
So why would it be bittul?
Okay, now is at the time to talk about Tayu. It's the way he made it. Okay, the whole point was to show that without bittul it's not going to work. The smartest guy in the world, the most sensitive guy in the world, the most spiritual guy in the world, the most good guy in the world, if he doesn't have inside of himself an aspect as a mission, will break. That's the lesson. Now, Rabbi Yossi, listen. This is an introduction to the next shtickle maimer, and in this maimer, shtickle maimer means 3 lines. The Rebbe has a wonderful question. Mamash, a wonderful question. We have in the Chumash 53 parshas. 53 parshas, right? Or 4. 53, 54. Depends on whether you count Nitzavim Vayelech as 1 split in half, in which case it's 53, or you count them as 2, in which case we want to have 53, because 53 is the same number, Prakam and Tanya, and 53 is Begematria Gan, which means a garden, whatever it is. There's 53 parshas. Each one has a name. The first parsha is Bereshit, the second parsha is Neach, the third parsha is Lech Lecha, the fourth parsha is Vayera, the fifth parsha is Chayisara, the sixth parsha is Tolda, the seventh parsha is Vayetze, Vayishlav, right, and so on, right? How do we choose names for parshas? The first word. Bereshit, first word, name of the parsha, yeah? Now, what's the first word of Noach? Eileh. We don't call Noach Eileh. We call Noach Noach. Why? Because there's a few parshas with the name Eileh. So you have to choose a word which is the very beginning of the parsha, but it's also distinctive, it's also special, it's unique. Now the Rebbe has many sichos where the Rebbe argues that the names of the parshas that we use have an unknown source. Everybody knows this week's parsha is Parshas Achei Kedoshim, Achei Mois Kedoshim. Who decided that the name of these parshas are Achei Mois Kedoshim? We don't know. There are people who gave names to parshas that we know. The Rambam gave a name to every parsha. Rabbeinu Sadia Gon, who was a couple hundred years before the Rambam, gave a name for every parsha. And we dafka don't use those names. For example, the Rambam would name this week's parsha Kedoshim Tihiyu, not Kedoshim. Or Vahi Acharei Mois, not Acharei Mois. I'm not sure about that. But many of the parshas that we have in the times of the Rishonim had different names, and no one really knows who decided to give the parshas new names. It's just like a hashgacha pratis. Over time, it's developed. And the Rebbe has so many sichos and so many parshas where he explains why in the times of the Rambam the name was like this, and nowadays the names are like that. I want to focus on 2 parshas that both should have the same name. Okay? The second parsha of the Chumash is Noach. The 5th parsha of the Chumash is Toldos. Here's the problem. Parshas Noach begins Eila Toldos Noach. Parshas Toldos begins Eila Toldos Yitzchak. If you have 2 parshas that are exactly the same, Eila Toldos Noach, Eila Toldos Yitzchak. So obviously you can't call them both Toldos, because you wouldn't know which Toldos it is. Correct? You could call them both by the name. You can call Noach and Yitzchak. That wouldn't bother anybody. And the Rambam, for example, calls Noach Toldos Noach and Toldos Yitzchak. So he uses both words. So the Rambam actually makes sense. We decided to call Noach Noach and Toldos, and the Rebbe says logically Noach should be Toldos and Toldos should be Yitzchak. Because it's first. If the names of the parsha are based on the very first words, the first parsha should choose the earlier word. So Noach should be Toldos, because that comes first. Toldos should be Yitzchak, because it comes second. That's not what we do. We call Noach Noach and Yitzchak Toldos. It doesn't make sense. You get it? If you follow the Rambam, so Noach is Toldos Noach, and Yitzchak is Toldos Yitzchak, which makes a lot of sense. You're going to have to wait. But since we use only one word, Noach should be Toldos, and Toldos should be Yitzchak. And the Rebbe gives a brilliant answer, and that brilliant answer is negated to this maimer. When you speak about people having children, there are 2 concepts. Obviously, Eila Toldos Noach means these are the children of Noach, Shem, Chom, and Yefes. Eila Toldos Yitzchak, these are the children of Yitzchak. Like Rashi says, Yankev Esav Amurim B'Pasha. Pasha's Toldos is about Yankev and Esav. Okay? But there's another translation of the word Toldos. Iker Toldosayim Shal Tzadikim Maisim Toivim. The children of a person, and not only the babies they have, the children of the person, the good deeds they do. Can you look in your Maimed on page 673, the 3rd line from the top of the page, inside, V'al derech zeyuv, and this also explains, Sha'anishama b'hizdavga b'guf, a soul marries a body, not a man marrying a woman. A soul marrying a body, V'toilid maisim toivim. We talked about marriage before, a zachar and a nekeva, a man and a woman, and she's got the kayach ein seif. Now we're talking about a neshama and a guf. The guf has the power of ein seif to create new life, good deeds. When a yid does a mitzvah, they're having a baby. Not a biological baby, not a scientific baby, a spiritual baby. And that baby is a revelation of ein seif. You know why? Because God didn't do that, you did that. It wasn't done by his programming, it was done by your free will. You're called a mahalech because you do a mitzvah. So there's two kinds of babies. There's the biological kind of baby, and there's the religious kind of baby. The biological baby is Pashat bringing a child new life into this world. And the man and the woman are two different bodies. And the koyach ein seif is in the woman. And then there's a neshama comes into this world and does a mitzvah. Every time a neshama does a mitzvah, the Eibishter gave them the opportunity to do it. The Eibishter also gave them the Yetzer Hara to stop him. And you could start explaining how complicated it is when a person does a mitzvah, they did it, not the Eibishter. And it's considered a baby, a child, new life, new creation. He didn't do it, we did it. The man and the woman in this case is the neshama and the guf. The guf would be the feminine, the female. The neshama would be the male. Together they produce new life, which is maisim tevim. Okay, now here's the chap. Does Pashas Noach talk about Noach or Noach's children? Does Pashas Yitzchak talk about Yitzchak or Yitzchak's children? That's why the name of Noach is Noach. And the name of Teldes is Yitzchak, even though it should be the other way around. There's two kinds of babies. One kind of babies is my kids. Another kind of babies is my good deeds. Pashas Noach's children are not Shem, Cham, and Yefes. They're what Noach did. The story of Pashas Noach is about Noach himself. He built the teva, he saved the world, he came out of the teva, he got shikir, and all. It's about Noach. So the choice of names, which was made by we're not even sure who, has to do with the content of the Pasha. There's two types of babies. Pashas Noach is called Noach because the babies of Noach are Noach's own actions. Pashas Teldes is Teldes and not Yitzchak because Pashas Teldes is not about Yitzchak, it's about Yitzchak's kids. So in other words, logically, commonsensically, Noach should be Teldes and Teldes should be Yitzchak. But philosophically, if you think about it, Pashas Noach is Noach because Noach's children are not his biological kids, are his actions. And Yitzchak's Parsha is not about Yitzchak, it's about Yaakov and Esau. In the very beginning of the Parsha, they're born, and from the beginning they're fighting with each other. The whole Parsha, Yaakov and Esau struggle for the birthright and the brachas, and they're running away, they got some ice. So the way the names of the Parshas were designed by Hashgacha Pratis is precise. But the point has to get to us is the two kinds of children. And in the context of this Maimed, there's two ways a person reveals Kerech Ein Seif. A human being expresses infinity. You become God. In having children. Because every time a baby is born, it's infinite. Infinite in the two ways we discussed in question 36. Every baby that's born resets the stage, and there can be infinite number of babies from each baby. But you know what else? Anytime you do a good deed, you do a maisim toivim, you do a good deed, it's an infinity. And the important thing is that infinity is not attributable to God. That infinity is attributable to you. You did this. It's your maisim toivim. Verstehst? I'm going to read that line again, okay? And today I'm not going to write questions. Tomorrow is Siddur. We come back on Monday. Sunday is Shabbos off, right?
Yeah.
So we come back on Monday. We're just going to start the next paragraph. Just read this line. The third line from the top of the page. Val derech zayuv, and there's another pshat. Shaneshama bezdavga baguf. When the soul meets the body, and here the soul is the zochar, is the man. And the body is the nekeva. V'toilid maisim tevma will deliver into this world good deeds. Ye yabad, there will be in those good deeds. Ha'oras eidin seiv baruchu, a trace of the infinite, of the godly. V'lachem, which is another reason why nas is bechinas mahalach, and the neshama is considered in motion and considered believable. Malachim are standing still. The neshama is saying Gan are standing still. On the neshama in this world till it gets married and has a baby. Until it has a baby. Alternatively, until he does good deeds, is also standing still. You become a mensch. You're in motion when you do good deeds. You're in motion when you have children. Are we good?
Yeah.
Huh?